Call the meeting to order. If everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and please remain standing. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We are thankful for this special community, for the time we share together and the bounty of our nation. We are thankful for the commitment of our people who volunteer their time and talents to make our community a better place to live and to work and raise a family. We know that we alone cannot meet the challenges or provide sufficient inspiration without community involvement and the dedication of all concerned to the greater good of the city and all who reside in it. We are thankful for this time and for this place that is Frostburg. Amen.
I'll be seated. Those whenever you're ready.
Commissioner Donnie Carter.
Here.
Commissioner Nina Forsythe.
Here.
Commissioner Kevin Grove.
Here.
Commissioner Adam Ritchie.
Here.
And Mayor Robert Flanagan.
Here, Liz. I need a motion second to approve the agenda.
I move we approve the agenda.
Second. Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Also approval of the minutes from past meetings.
Motion to approve the minutes. Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
And we have some special presentations and requests this evening. First off is the Spirit of Frostburg Award. So Barb, you are up. You are up. Limelight belongs to you and someone else. You can explain.
Can I even rotate this and do everything more?
Sure.
Maybe, maybe not.
Can you help her rotate the podium? Thank you.
I know I was first up, I would have been better prepared if I did it like this. Right, because I need to talk to like everyone here because I'm a woman of few words. Right?
Right.
That's right.
That's your story. You're sticking to it.
It is. It is. Good evening, everyone. I'm glad to be here to start things off this evening. My name is Barb Armstrong. I'm actually the assistant treasurer at the Foundation for Frostburg. Several years ago, in 2012, the Bicentennial Committee had some money left over. And we took those funds and invested them at the Foundation for Frostburg with the mayor and city council's blessing to do so. A portion of that fund continues to grow every year. Another portion of it we use to present once a year, the Spirit of Frostburg Award. And so this is actually our 9th year to present the Spirit of Frostburg Award. It's actually for an individual or a group that have upheld our Frostburg's mission of enhancing the quality of life for the citizens of Frostburg and the surrounding communities. So we have, as you can see, a very nice piece of artwork that is given every year as part of this award, along with a cash stipend. This was actually the poster that was designed for the bicentennial. On it is the commissioned bicentennial poem, which was actually done by Nina Forsythe, who is now serving as our commissioner. So she goes onward and upward, every year. And this is presented to each individual every year or each group every year that wins our award. So we've had a number of award winners that I always like to mention because the whole purpose of this award is to really recognize those people who enhance our quality of life here in town. So in 2013, Winnie Davis, Frostburg Area Ambulance Service, Chuck Dickin from WFWM, and Jack DeShong from the Frostburg Lamppost Committee were our award winners that year. 2014, the House and Garden Club of Frostburg and the American Legion Faraday Post 24. 2015, Elizabeth Eshelman and the Frostburg Museum, Dr. William Beeman, and Dr. Barbara Ornstein of the FSU Children's Literature Center. 2016, Mr. Patrick O'Brien, Director of Civic Engagement at FSU. 2017, the Classy Chassis Car Club and the Frostburg Elks Lodge 470. In 2018, retired hometown heroes Sergeant George D. Kroll, Lieutenant Kevin G. Grove, Chief Royce C. Dowdy for 120 years of combined service on the Frostburg Police Department. In 2019, the Frostburg Area Interfaith Food Pantry, and this stipend treated the directors and the designated volunteers to a nice dinner. In 2020, last year, Mr. Bob Stevenson, he was the retired principal of Bell Elementary School. Which brings us to this year's award winner, Mr. John R. Kirby Jr., Frostburg City Administrator, retired September 14th, 2004 to June 30th, 2019. He served our city as city administrator. And now I've known John for a very long time. We've been involved in a lot of things together. I've attended a lot of work sessions, a lot of council meetings over the years. And so my first thought, this award winner is picked by the mayor and the city council. So what a great honor. I thought John would think that the people that he worked for thought he did a wonderful job and chose him this year to win this Spirit of Frostburg Award. So my first thought is, how nice. And then my second thought is, I can stand up here and I can say so many things about John Kirby. And he will be so excited to know that I can do this, I'm sure. Right. The city administrator's job is to serve the residents of Frostburg, and they carry out the policies and the directives that are from the mayor and city council. So in his job, he actually ran the day-to-day operations of the Frostburg government, and it was his job to make sure that the government was operating as efficiently and as effectively as it could for all of the residents of our town. He felt that anything that happened at all in our little town, if it happened on his watch, he was responsible for it, and he did a wonderful job overseeing this special place. So now that he is retired, and because of many years of experience, John recently told me about a book that he's writing that will be published for individuals who are thinking about a career in public service and city administration. He's so far completed 8 chapters. He told me about some of the titles of these chapters. Number 1, Sweetwater and Piney Dam, what to do when water doesn't always flow downhill. Number 2, to buy or not to buy, the life and legacy of trash trucks. Number 3, buy one, get one free. Simple ways to recruit and retain police officers. The budget. 10 pain-free ways to survive the annual audit. How to rob a bank. The best way to pay for rising health insurance premiums. Fracking. It's a nickname for fracturing. Do it here and we'll break your legs. Number 7, the slick reverse. Learning subtraction using water meters. And number 8, federal mandates and the big divide. What goes in the sewer stays in the sewer. So in addition to writing this book, John has found some time to participate in what I call the 3 M's. The first one is Milo. Grandson Milo, everybody needs a Milo. The second one is museum. John volunteers at our Frostburg Museum, where he occasionally finds a wow, look at that picture, and he shares it with everybody on Facebook. I think one of the most recent ones that I saw the other day was the pathway leading from the depot area up to Main Street was a covered pathway. The third M is making fish bite. Knowing John Kirby, he'll probably share a bit of this stipend with Milo, the museum, and with those who try to make the fish bite. Frostburg was lucky, and is still very lucky, John, to have you serve our community. If you would come forward, it would be my pleasure. present this to you. Thank you all very much, and thank you, John.
Oh, you don't get off that easy. I have my own theories. First of all, she lied through her teeth. Second of all, I realize that you've run out of names, which is how you've got to me. Frostburg has many great things, and one of those is volunteers. And Barb mentioned a few of those great groups, but I'd like to mention just a couple quickly tonight. The museum's one. We were there this morning. The Garden Club. We had the biggest drought in, 50 years, and those baskets were still beautiful all summer long. I thought the chief would be here, but the volunteer fire department they're all volunteers, obviously, and they're always on the road. Tonight, as we're here, the lamppost committee is in the basement of the convent, redoing the wreaths. Those beautiful wreaths you see on the lampposts are put together by a group of volunteers. They're elderly people, but they work harder than I can, and that's why I'm not there helping them, and I'm here with you. I cannot thank you enough. Barb, really. The bicentennial, if you were here for that wonderful weekend, was 5 years in the making. We raised $125,000 in less than a year, and spent $100,000 and put the other 25 into the investment for the future. And in the end, there were 6 of us that made up the committee that went from beginning to end. And Barb Armstrong was the chairman of that committee. So if you remember that weekend, thank Barb Armstrong. Ladies and gentlemen, I do thank you. I really appreciate it. And best of luck to you in the future. Thank you. Barb, thank you. Chief?
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming out. I'm very proud tonight to be presenting, along with Commissioner Grove, several police service awards. Some are for years of police service, and some are for specific activities. I'd like for you to keep in mind when we do these presentations, each of these officers would probably be eligible for multiple awards. Each of these guys goes above and beyond every day, and gals, Reggie's here somewhere too, goes above and beyond for the police department and for your city every day. They've each been a part, literally, of saving people's lives. They've been a part of keeping the peace in your community, preventing problems, keeping our community safe, and being only a moment away when there's a problem. And a lot of what we do is proactive community service events. You see us at our schools every day. We're directing traffic, but we're also promoting safety. We're meeting members of our community and being accessible. We're out at the crossing when St. Michael's lets out. We're out at all of our community events, and they've probably seen all of these folks either at one of them or on our Facebook page. Reggie's stuck behind the dispatcher desk a lot, so she's incognito, but we try to get her out there on Facebook. But anyway, we're going to do one award at a time, and I would ask each of the recipients to come up so we can get a picture. And then if you could just stand aside, and then we'll take a big group picture when we're done. Thank you very much. So the first award is for Lieutenant J.M. Sykes. J.M. has been a member of the Frostburg City Police Department for 20 years. He joined the department in 2001. And he rose through each of the ranks, PFC, corporal, sergeant, and now lieutenant, just as of this year. J.M. was a school resource officer for many years, and he was actually the first school resource officer we ever had. And we went with that program from J.M. going down there in his first couple of days and having folks in the school, not really sure why he was there, saying, hey, what are you going to do? To today, where you can barely imagine a day at school without a school resource officer there. Often they're the first people to hear from students about concerns or public safety concerns. They're a good mentor and friend to the students. They teach DARE. JM actually taught DARE and some of those programs at Mount Savage as well at that time. We had an agreement with them. So he's just been fantastic. If you have ever read his police police reports, you will never see one more meticulous and more professional, the way he speaks to people, the way he does his work every day. He's an excellent field training officer. JM and I have been friends since I came here to work because he was my field training officer, and we've been friends and partners ever since. So I can't thank him enough for all he's done for the department and for the city. Sir, congratulations. It's an honor to present this to you. An honor. Thank you very much.
Thanks, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much. Next, we have Sergeant Matthew Beeman. Matt is probably the most famous police officer in Frostburg. If you've ever been out to Derby Day or any of our special events, Matt knows everybody. He too was a school resource officer for several years at Bell Elementary, Frost, and Mountain Ridge, and he did such a good job relating to the kids and teaching DARE and all these things. Every time we're out at Derby Day or the cruise or whatever it may be, the kids all know Matt, come up and say hi to him, come up and joke with him. It's been probably one of the best things that could be done for the police department. I sincerely appreciate all your work there. Matt's a military veteran. He was in the wars in the Middle East after joining the Army in 2001. After 8 years, he joined the Frostburg Police Department in 2010. So during that time, he's risen through the rank of PFC and then corporal, which is our first supervisory rank, and currently sergeant. Matt is a classroom instructor from the Police Training Commission. He has that certification. He's also a firearms instructor and a field training officer. Matt has been commended by the mayor and city council before for his response to the tragic murder scene on November 2011. And of course, that was just an absolutely chaotic scenario. So that's just an example of the types of major incidents that Matt has been involved with, but he's done everything from administering naloxone to overdose patients and saving their lives to handling day-to-day calls, traffic stops. Him and I worked over homecoming weekend, and the two of us wrote 20 civil citations for everything. So we've had fun for a long time. And it's my honor to present this to you, your 10-year service award. Of course, that was 2010 to 2020. That 2020 was a complete wash, so here we are, 2020's award.
And before he goes, I'm keeping this till I get my stick of Mullane.
That's a successful hunter.
Yeah, wait for it to mature a little.
Next, we have PCO2, Regina Bennett. Good evening. So Reggie, as she is known, has been with us since 2010. This is her 10-year service award also from 2010 to 2020. Reggie is a United States Navy veteran, where she met her wonderful husband Roger in the background. And those of you who don't know much about what our PCOs do, they're our radio operators, they run anything that we do. We call into them. They're our dispatcher. Any calls they get, they take the calls from the phone. They dispatch us out to the scene. They check everything for us. They have to know where we're at 24/7, so that if we need help or need backup, they can get somebody there. Reggie herself has handled some of the most terrible calls you can imagine, including the murder I mentioned that Sergeant Beeman was at. You know, we had just dozens of people calling in screaming. We had the suspect calling in. We had, all sorts of things. And imagine being Reggie sitting there in the middle of the night getting these calls. She is absolutely outstanding. Our dispatchers also do double duty. They do all of our secretarial and clerical work as well. So Reggie keeps me straight about every day. I usually forget something, and she's always keeping me going. So it's a big job, and it's really double duty in a lot of ways, like many of us here in city government. So very appreciative to Reggie for all that she's done, and I'm honored to present you with this 10-year service award. Next, we have Corporal Mullane. So for Chris, we have the Maryland Police Training Commission Instructor of the Year Award. Each police department has the opportunity to nominate an instructor who's provided outstanding service, and then the commission recognizes them at a ceremony. Because of COVID, it was virtual this year, but they made a nice slideshow with all the instructors around Maryland who received this award, one of whom was Chris. Chris is an extremely experienced police officer, a military veteran. He was in the Air Force for 8 years where he served as a military police officer or security services. He has all sorts of training certifications. We'd probably be here all night if I started to list them, but you know, he teaches, for Maryland Policing, he's an academic classroom instructor, he's a firearms instructor, he's a taser instructor, patrol rifle instructor, and many other things. Chris actually revamped our firearms training program. He incorporated into the judgmental shooting course, he incorporated in increasing stress, like he'll yell at you and cuss at you and all these things, and you have to transition from your firearm to your taser and give verbal commands and pay attention. He's just been outstanding. We wanted to develop a patrol rifle program, and Chris started that from scratch, right off the ground. He really revamped our taser program, and he's there every day. As I mentioned earlier, each of these officers would be eligible for many different awards. Chris always goes above and beyond. Anything from basically wiring this building and hooking up security cameras to arresting criminals to training us, he's always there, and we are very grateful for him. Chris was a Cumberland police officer for 14 years before he worked in private security for a while and then joined us in 2018. I'm thrilled you're here, and thank you for everything. I'm honored to present you this award. Appreciate it, sir. Thank you. Thank you. I forgot to mention the officers that received their Years of Service awards also have a commendation bar on their uniforms that designates their 10 and 20 years of service respectively on the dress codes. Next we have PFC Greg Edwards. Good evening, sir. So this award is the Cumberland Valley Optimist Club Award for Distinguished Law Enforcement Service. Very similar to the Instructor Award, each department can nominate a recipient of this award. We nominated PFC Edwards, who has been an outstanding police officer. He joined us in 2017. He worked in corrections prior to that. He's a graduate of Mountain Ridge High School, which is wonderful for our community. He has been the top DUI officer in the department. He's received the DUI award from the state of Maryland for our department and the DUI Meritorious Service Award. When he'll work any special grants, any overtime we need, he is always there. He's just a very versatile police officer who can do a little bit of everything. Greg writes excellent reports. He speaks to people well. He is one of the most proactive and successful officers, most productive officers in terms of stops and citations, especially under special grants. Sometimes we'll get special grants to do like cell phone enforcement or DUI enforcement, and Greg is just top-notch on all those things. He's also our current school resource officer. So he started in 2020, which was a very difficult school year to kind of get in the groove, and it's still a little bit different. So he's done an outstanding job there as well, communicating with school staff, working through these challenges, and just doing a great job every day. So very grateful to you for your service, and I'm honored to present you this award. Congratulations, sir. Could we get a group picture with everybody?
I don't think that was a question.
No, it was more of a courtesy question.
We're so glad that all of you were able to come. So glad your family and friends were here. We're going to have a late dinner after the meeting at the Toasted Goat. If any of you would like to join your families, you're more than welcome. But no, don't feel any obligation. I want to give a very special shout out to my wife Whitney. Who's
Oh, yeah. Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Appreciate your
Thank
service
you.
very much. Thank you. Maybe I want to sneak out. We'll take a minute. Go ahead. Not that it doesn't get more exciting after this, but. Yes, now we're going to get into the exciting part.
Yes, sir. Thank you for coming. See you guys later.
Are you gonna come around?
Yeah. John, the meeting's not over yet. We're gonna get docked tomorrow, I'm telling you. How are you? This is proclamation for White Cane Awareness Day. Whereas the white cane, which every blind citizen in the city of Frostburg has the right to carry, demonstrates and symbolizes the ability to achieve a full and independent life and the capacity to work productively, competitive employment. And whereas the white cane, by allowing every blind person to move freely and safely from place to place, makes it possible for the blind to fully participate in and contribute to our society and live their lives every day as they want. Whereas every citizen should be aware that the law requires that the motorists and cyclists exercise appropriate caution when approaching a blind person carrying a white cane. And whereas the city of Frostburg also calls upon employees for the public and private to be aware of and utilize the employment skills of blind citizens by recognizing their worth as individuals and their productive capabilities. And finally, whereas the city of Frostburg, through its public agencies and with cooperative assistance to blind industries and services of Maryland, can and should facilitate the expansion of employment opportunity for and greater acceptance of blind persons in the competitive labor market. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Robert W. Robert Flanagan, of the City of Frostburg, do hereby proclaim October 21st, 2021, as White Cane Awareness Day for the City of Frostburg. Okay, man. Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Appreciate that.
Go ahead.
Our next proclamation, on behalf of Mayor and Council for the City of Frostburg. Whereas the City of Frostburg Office of Economic Development is an active member of the Maryland Economic Development Association, also known as MEDA, a nonprofit organization established in 1961, whose mission is to enhance the knowledge and skills of its members, encourages partnerships and networking among people committed to bringing jobs and capital to Maryland, and promotes economic development as an investment in Maryland. And whereas MEDA members promote the economic well-being of Maryland by working to improve the state's business climate and the professionalism of those in the field of economic development, including other professionals with an interest in the economy of Maryland. And through its regular meetings, special programs, and projects, members address diverse issues. And whereas the economic growth and stability of the state affects all regions and jurisdictions of Maryland, and the City of Frostburg is an important component of the state's economic success, and will highlight those successes by partnering with Frostburg First of Main Street, Maryland, to promote our downtown, visiting local businesses, developing a local job fair in November to help staff local businesses, targeting our depot gateway for tourism improvements, and developing public art projects.
These are my way.
Now therefore,
Oh, yeah, now therefore I, that would be me, Mayor Robert Flanagan, the City of Frostburg, do hereby proclaim the week of October 25th and 29th, 2021, Economic Development Week here in the great city of Frostburg.
thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Just so you all know, before we all got here, we had 2 ribbon cuttings this afternoon. We have 3 in November.
Yes.
And so the hits just keep on coming. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. All right, Mayor and Commissioners reports. Motion and second to approve reports of the various departments of the City of Frostburg.
I'll make a motion to approve the monthly reports. Second.
Moving second, all in favor?
Aye.
And I believe there's have a couple of announcements. You
Yes.
got something for us?
Um,
Ooh, scary.
So there's a couple Halloween announcements. Trick or treating will be on Halloween, Sunday, October 31st from 6 to 8 p.m. If you would like to participate, to hand out candy, leave your porch light on. of kids who would like to participate to make sure they hit some of the neighborhoods they don't always hit, because there are some neighborhoods that are feeling neglected. The second one is the Halloween parade, which will take place on the 28th on Main Street, begins at 6 p.m. Kids in costume can stop by City Place for candy immediately after the parade. And those are the two announcements.
Okay, pretty scary stuff. Anybody else have anything? Public hearings. What do we have here this evening? We have our combined sewer overflow. Hayden?
Hi. Pretty quick today. Everything's going fairly smoothly. We did run into some procurement issues as far as delays with Phase 9B. We have approximately 33 curb boxes on back order that were ordered in June that we're still waiting on, as I think a lot of construction projects are. We do still plan to have paving, sidewalks, and curbs, water, sewer, and storm done by the wintertime. So at surface level, you won't really be able to tell the difference. There will just be a few punch list items that won't be done until the spring. 9C had its pre-con meeting yesterday. Everything seems to be moving according to plan. Braddock Construction will be doing that work, and they've been giving a temporary notice to proceed to start ordering materials. We expect that to kick off in the spring. Other than that, it's moving pretty well. Any questions?
Do you have any questions? Thank you, Hayden. Appreciate the report tonight. Ordinance 2021-04.
Thank you, Mayor. This ordinance was introduced at your September council meeting, and tonight was the advertised public hearing for ordinance 2021-24, which is related to the election law in the city of Frostburg. At your this is a two-part process in terms of amending the city's election law, because there are some components of your election law that's located in the charter and some that's located in the city code. And both of those have different amendment processes. As you recall, the charter was amended last month, and it has 50 days, 40 of which, in that first 40 days, it can be petitioned to referendum. Otherwise, it will go into effect on the 50th day, which is early November. Tonight is the public hearing is in regards to the ordinance changes, and I will just go through the changes to the ordinance. Within the ordinance text is a clean version of how it would read, and then the city attorney did prepare and attach to the ordinance a red line version that shows the edits. So one of the first amendments to the ordinance, it specifies and updates the public notice section to include things like the city's requirement to post an election notice on the website and social media pages. It also requires that the second notice required of the city in the Cumberland Times News of the election does include all of the names that would appear on the ballot. Then it goes on to update candidate filing requirements to include the financial disclosure form, which is included in state law now, so that just updates your code in general. It also changes the date in which write-in candidates must file, and it moves it up to 25 days prior to the election. The reason for this is by moving to a mail-in election, you want those write-in candidates to have an opportunity. They need to file before people start voting, so people aren't returning their ballot before a write-in candidate has even filed. It then specifies a deadline for the city to mail out the ballots in the window 25 to 35 days prior to the election. It addresses how a registered voter would receive a replacement ballot if they did not receive or lost theirs. It strikes the absentee ballot provisions because everyone is getting a ballot by mail. And then it goes on to require ballots to have the oath of voter section completed with a signature. And it adjusts the ballot counting to be over a period of 10 days that would be publicly notified, in which public notice would be issued by the city administrator, so that those wishing to watch the counting process can be there. And that all has to happen within 10 days. And it also specifies how long all the ballots should be kept, which is a period of 22 months after the date of the election for the city's record retention policies. I do have one public comment that I received via email that I would like to read into the record, and then following that, we'd welcome any other public comment, and we just ask those wishing to comment to come to the podium and state their name and address for the record. This is from Lisa Van Houten, who lives on Bernard Street. Unfortunately, the resolution does not eradicate polling places, nor does it identify where the drop boxes are located, as the Commission indicated in last month's public discussion. Furthermore, accessibility has not been denoted. For instance, in last month's public discussion, I mentioned that drop boxes could be located at the police department and the local post office, of which I believe both are under security, surveillance, and protection. This is further highlighted in the following section of the proposed resolution. I'll just read that. The notice shall state the date of the election, the location of the polling places, and the hours during which the polling places will be open for voting. In addition, if mail-in voting and drop boxes are the only way to deposit a vote, then the voter registration card issued by the county will need to be amended, especially for municipal elections. To make that adjustment to educate, inform, and engage the citizens will take well over a year. Furthermore, the resolution does not include the Frostburg Community Center as a drop-off or mail-in location. I respectfully request a deferral of vote on this resolution as a point of order under Robert's Rules until the resolution is amended to include the necessary descriptions of engagement for mail-in municipal voting. Finally, I want to hear how retirement centers or those of us who travel and vote in the Frostburg municipal voting area are to be engaged when the mail-in voting is the only mechanism for voting engagement, knowing that there can be up to a 14-day delay in processing first-class mail in this state, and yet voting tally is due within 10 days of voting. I'll address, I'd like to address some of those points now. So the Dropbox location was included in the charter piece that was amended last month, and it specifies 37 Broadway, and at that meeting, it specifies the meeting, and then everyone agreed last month that the lobby of the police station was the most appropriate. It was under 24-hour surveillance and also open 24 hours a day. That doesn't need to be codified. That's an administrative matter. The polling places for the county voting change fairly often because of different constraints. So, and they don't need to change their code to change a polling place. I've reached out to Diane Leibel that runs the county election board, and she said that the only issue with updating the voter registration cards is we're confined to communicating what we need to communicate on 3 lines of text. And we would work with the State Board of Elections, but she felt that that was about a 2-week-long process. Okay. And then again, for this last comment, how for retirement centers or those of us who travel, Per Commissioner Grove's comment last month, I spoke to the supervisor at the post office as our postmaster was not in the Frostburg office. But he assured me that if anyone wishing to drop their ballot at the Frostburg post office and does it in person and says this stays local, that it will not be sent to Baltimore and back. It would be handled here. I also did a little bit of research regarding the USPS changes that went into effect October 1st, and they don't seem that they will affect a delivery here to any extent than what it currently is. It delays mail from here to California and things like that because the Postal Service is reducing the use of airplanes. But our mail was never getting to Baltimore or back on an airplane. So the 2 to 3 day average is still what the post office was stating for first class letters. And in addition, on that comment, the ballots will be mailed 25 to 35 days in advance. So let's just say that a resident would receive them 20 to 30 days in advance. And then they have to, in the text, we can encourage people to drop them off in person or mail them back as soon as possible. And, I think it's a pretty low risk that if someone, even with that, I think some of the articles I read today that even in 2020, 91% of the mail was received within the stated USPS 2 to 3 day guideline. So, it's your own choice to wait till that day of the election to put it in the mail and get it postmarked, and then think it's going to take run the risk of it taking an extraordinarily long time. I'd happy to answer any other questions that you might have based on those comments, or try to answer them. Otherwise, I'd ask you to open it up for public comment.
Other public comment?
Good. Do I get to rotate this back? Oh my gosh.
You can stand off this.
Barb's way have it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. I wanted to come in and thank the city of Frostburg for doing this. I think it's a wonderful move that solidifies the city election process as being important and not folded into something else. I think it saves the city money. I counted up how many city elections I've been involved in over the years. I've been involved in 17 different cities, and many of those repeated elections over time. Having your municipal elections be separate from the normal November chaos that happens is really important, and I appreciate the fact that you are making this move to do things in a better way while still observing that. At the state in Annapolis and in Washington, there's a Republican answer and a Democratic answer to just about every issue, but you guys deal with practical things where there's usually just a right answer, and not having that partisanship injected into our city government is healthy. And I've seen what happens when city governments get folded into the partisan process, and all of a sudden your county party chair has 3 of you on some kind of a ballot or a slate, and it's just not healthy. I think it's good for Frostburg, and doing it by mail. I've worked with cities that do it by mail. I've worked with cities who do it the other way, and I think it's a great way for you to do it. A lot of people seem to say on Facebook, well, I used to love going down there. It's the only time I ever, every 2 years I get to see so-and-so. And there is a little bit of ceremony lost in the process, but what some other municipalities have done is they have switched the ceremony part to the time when they're going to announce the results. And it turns into a big parking lot party. All the candidates show up, all their workers show up, people from the community show up. And if you don't hit your, if you announce you're going to do it at 5 and you're still counting until 5:45, it just adds to the fun. So maybe post-COVID, you could consider incorporating some type of celebrations. or your-
Election block party.
Exactly, exactly. The other thing that I would like you to consider going forward is I have never been anywhere other than here in Maryland that puts uncontested races on the ballot. In other places, and I'm sure there are other places that do it this way, but in other states, and at least 4 that I've worked in, if qualifying ends and there's only one person who's a qualified candidate, that election is called right then and there. That person's name doesn't have to then go on a ballot and be, have a choice of one, as we did in the last election. That was money wasted. And I think that since you incorporating this new mail-in process, that maybe it's time to approach the state and ask for some legislation that would allow a completely 100% uncontested election not to require the balloting process. It's a lot of money, and I think it also contributes to people feeling like, and it doesn't make me think my vote matters. I didn't have any choices. I don't even think I voted the last time, to be honest, and I never not vote. So I would ask that you talk to legislators, whoever, to see if maybe we could get that changed, and then that way in the future, when we don't have contested elections, we don't have to spend that money. And when you look back as to why people do it one way or the other, the only person that benefits from being on a ballot in an uncontested race is the person whose name is on the ballot. They do that because they want the public to know that I'm once again the county commissioner or the supervisor of elections or the mayor, whoever. And I say, if your constituents don't know you have that job, maybe you don't need to have that job if they have to be reminded on a ballot who you are. So maybe that's something that we could do. And then when we do have uncontested races, then we have some extra money in the budget. Thank you.
But then what we do about the block party?
We have a
Oh,
really
yeah.
nice
Well,
block
how
party.
about we take the money and throw a block party?
Oh,
That
sure.
sounds like a good
So
idea.
that's state law. I think Maryland requires elections to be held no matter, even if they're uncontested.
I questioned it to our Frostburg Elections Committee in previous years, and I was told that it was required by law for the name to be on the ballot. And I did a bunch of research after that, and I don't think it's a point that anyone would have any trouble with.
And this was a point of discussion last year with the election board. Kitty Davis was the county election supervisor for her career and very knowledgeable, and fortunately serves on the election board. And I'm not sure if it's a requirement or not, but if you, from what I recall at that meeting, there's potentially a way to get out of it. But last year, there was so much chaos within the state election board that we just knew we weren't going to get an answer in a timely manner, and the election board, chose to just move forward with doing an election. That was a decision that was discussed. So that's certainly something that can be researched with our attorney and Maryland Municipal League to see if legislation is required or it's something that the city could codify at a later time.
Makes sense.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
Rob Forsythe, 53 Centennial. I'd like to basically say what Kate Pepper said. I think it's a great idea. I think it's really commendable that our town is going towards something that would allow a lot more people to vote with a lot more comfort. I also think that Kate's idea is worth thinking about, but I'd being the pessimist that I am, I'd warn against the worst case scenario where no election is contested and so you don't have any vote, and I think people would be really angry if there just wasn't an election. So whatever guidelines you come up with, it's got to be the same for lots of different situations. That's all. Thanks for the opportunity.
Anyone else? Okay. Close that old business and move to new business.
So, old business is ordinance 2021-04. The ordinance subject to the advertised public hearing that just closed. I'd ask for a motion and a second.
Okay.
Move that we approve ordinance 2021-04.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next, sorry, I lost my screen here.
Okay.
There we go. Laura is here with the enterprise zone resolution.
Thank you. Each October, as you know, we adopt or certify the new businesses in town that would like to participate in the enterprise zone program. By new, I don't necessarily mean new businesses that have just opened, but sometimes it's new ones, but also any businesses who have expanded by either creating new job positions for people who live within the enterprise zone, or businesses who have invested in improvements that they think will substantially increase their tax assessment. So this is something that we adopt them, and then this will be forwarded on to the county and then the state, which will determine their eligibility for two types of tax credits. And this year we have Pharmacare and the Deep End as our two new businesses. So if there are any questions, I'd like to open up the floor for questions now. No? If not, I'd like to ask for a motion and a vote on Resolution 2021-43 to adopt those new businesses this year, or to certify them.
I make a motion we adopt Resolution 2021-43.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
If it pleases the Mayor and Council and the Assembly, I'd like to address the second bullet point for Resolution 2021-44 to amend the schedule of fees. We'd like to include credit card and debit fees for online permitting, registration, and code enforcement fees through the iWork system. The fee would be 3.25% with a $2 minimum. The iWork system is the system that the Community Development Department is implementing to handle our permitting, rental housing licensing, and code enforcement actions. We hope to go live at the end of this month. That's not to be confused with, that's for online credit card payments only, not to be confused with credit card payments that would be made at the counter in the finance department. So those fees are 2.95% of the total transaction amount. And that's everything I have for you this evening in regard to those fees, and then Elaine will follow up with that first bullet point.
And
Okay.
that's mainly because of it's basically a pass-through, right? Because of the iWork. It's taking care of that.
Yes. iWork is putting everything online, so our citizenry can apply for permits and can apply for rental licensing and can handle any kind of code enforcement fee action that may be necessary completely online without having to do an in-person transaction.
So it's basically convenience.
Yes, exactly.
And to follow up with what LJ was referring to, as we continue to process credit and debit card transactions here at City Hall through our accounting system that we've been using since 2019, those credit card and debit card fees would remain unchanged at 2.95% of the transaction fee. In addition, for online payments that are paid through our portal for tax and utility payments, the credit and debit card fee would continue as well. The customer pays the 2.95% of the total transaction. The amendment that we are recommending for your consideration this evening would be for the city to begin absorbing the e-check fee beginning December 1st for online payments. Currently, the customers who make a tax and utility payment online pay a transaction fee of $1.95. The city does not receive any of those fees. That goes totally to the third-party processor. In an effort to incentivize more online payments, the city would recommend going to where the city would absorb the fee. The fee would drop to 99 cents per transaction. That could change by the processor later, but it is a savings to the customer in that they would no longer bear that fee. So they would be authorizing a withdrawal from a savings or a checking account through their online payment. The city would be billed monthly for those fees, and those fees would be paid to the vendor. So we would ask for your consideration of Resolution 2021-44, which would amend the electronic payment processing fees for e-checks for tax and utility payments online, and also include the new iWork system online payments for credit and debit card transactions.
Make a motion to approve Resolution 2021-44.
Second. Moved and seconded. Is there any public comment? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Thank you very much. This evening, I also present for your consideration Resolution 2021-45. The city's investment policy was passed by resolution in 1995 and has been unchanged since that time. The primary objectives of the investment policy of the city are safety, liquidity, and return on investment. And through a recent review of our investment policy, while we have been comparing different banking opportunities, we recommend some minor amendments to the policy that would allow the city to take advantage of more advantageous rate and fee structures. The two amendments that we're proposing for the investment policy would first be to remove the stipulation in Section 11 of the policy that prohibits the city to have more than 50% of its investments with one financial institution. And secondly, it would add a second bullet point in attachment A that would also clarify that the allowable collateral could be with a pool of investment-grade municipal securities pledged as collateral for municipal deposits in excess of $250,000. This was discussed in detail at your work session last week, but if you have any questions, I'd be glad to address that. Otherwise, I'd ask for a motion and a second to approve Resolution 2021-45 to amend the investment policy.
I just wanted to note that even though it strikes the requirement of having no more than 50% of the city's total investment portfolio with a single financial institution, it still remains that no more than 50% should be invested in a single security type. So there's still some, you preserve the safety that way.
That is
right?
correct.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2021-45. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any public comment? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elaine.
Motion 2021-46, the HVAC replacement at the water treatment plant. It's already been approved to pay for the HVAC replacement with ARPA funding. However, I only received one bid on it. No matter how many contractors I reach out to, only one has availability, and it's all seasons. They've agreed to still honor their quote for the replacement of the HVAC unit, and I would propose to move ahead with that one quote before we run out of time and prices go up again.
Right.
So I would ask for a motion and a second for motion 2021-46.
I move we approve Resolution 2021-46.
Second. Moved and seconded. Any public comment? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
The Parks and Rec Department is running into the same thing with HVAC, the armory.
Okay, the last, you can stay up here. for this one. The last resolution I have for you tonight is Resolution 2021-47. This is what's becoming the ritual of approving projects or programs at each council meeting with the ARPA funds. Lydia Clark, she is the person we've brought on contractually to help manage these funds. She's doing a lot of work to question everything that we come up with, criticize, critique it, whatever, which is good. We certainly don't want to ever be in a situation that we're audited and being asked to repay the federal government. And so far, the projects that have been introduced are relatively small projects, and she's going to be talking to you about public communication and things like that at next month's work session as we start to ramp up to look at bigger projects and endeavors. But to keep things moving on, the first program would be to amend the vaccine incentive program for city employees to an amount not to exceed $26,500. You all were in agreement based on the city's employees' vaccination rates and trying to just move that needle to $500, so that would account for all 52 employees getting $500. It has at least moved the needle 10%, the incentive, so I think that's significant. Likewise, back from last month, you had asked me to reach out to the nursing homes and about ways that we could support them. They're both currently looking at HVAC opportunities and some other COVID-specific expenses, but they were both in agreement that vaccine incentives would help them as well. So this is budgeting $500 per employee at both nursing homes in the city. It's the way that one of the nursing homes has structured it and how I feel that they both likely will go, or has requested that it be structured, and I feel like they'll probably mirror each other, is no one would receive the incentive until they met a certain threshold of vaccinations, and then all vaccinated employees would receive it.
And we need to get those rates up.
Yes, for sure. And then Hayden has 3 small projects. So these would be sewer, water distribution, and water treatment plant projects that are under $25,000. The reason for that threshold is based on the procurement policy. He can either, depending on that, anything under $25,000 doesn't need to be approved by mayor and council. So some of these small projects that he would normally take on that could be done with ARPA funds, and none of these 3 categories would exceed $150,000. Anything you want to add to that?
Nope.
Okay. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I'd ask for a motion and a second for Resolution 2021-47.
Make a motion to approve Resolution 2021-47.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Is there any public comment? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
All right, Chief. You know, you've already had 11 minutes, so
Yes,
we're
sir.
going to cut you back.
Keep it really short today. Trying to get it down to 10.
You had the place full, you know. It really taxed the air conditioning system here.
Yes, sir. Well, good evening, Your Honor and Commissioners. Thank you for having me this evening. I have the police department report for you for the month of September 2021. As you can see, we had 724 incidents compared to 649 incidents the year before. We had a pretty busy and diverse month. We had 21 arrests of different types, 2 civil citations, 19 well-being checks, 37 requests for a police officer, 57 disturbances of multiple types, which can include assaults, domestic disturbances, noise complaints, disorderly behavior, those sorts of things. 18 motor vehicle crashes, 78 traffic details at our schools, the church crossing and a number of those things, funerals and those sorts of events, and 103 traffic stops. So always keep them busy, always trying to be out there doing good things. And I always try to note that, the numbers are a part of policing and they're a way to measure some of the things we're doing. But, ultimately we're out there trying to be close to the community, talking to people, trying to prevent problems. And sometimes when our numbers are low, that's a good thing too. Sometimes that's an indication of prevention and deterrence. So enforcement plays a role in that, and we appreciate the work our folks do every day. So that would conclude my report. I'm glad to answer any questions you may have.
I think we're all tickled for the little celebration we had in the city.
Yes, sir. Well, I appreciate all of you allowing us to do it here. I think it was really nice.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
To any citizens wishing to make a public comment, please come to the podium and state your name and address for the official record.
I think I forgot that the first time. Kit Pepper, 211 James Court. The Baltimore Sun today, there's an article where our legislative delegation has sent an official letter to the state of West Virginia asking that we be considered for the possibility of being constituent counties, Washington, Garrett, and Allegheny, of the state of West Virginia. It is, I think, 3 sentences. I looked at it and I looked up at the date. I was positive it was going to say April 1st. It doesn't. It says October 5th. When interviewed, at least Buckle, Beitzel, Edwards, and McKay all signed it. And also Washington County sent its own letter also asking to be moved to West Virginia. I think it's obvious from a personal standpoint, it's ridiculous that our elected officials would try to make the point that they're not taken seriously in Annapolis by doing something here, which we obviously can't take seriously. I think it's a huge diversion. McKay is talking about having it put on the ballot in terms of a referendum. He's, I guess, trying to get more muscle with the rest of the state. It's going to distract our elected leaders from doing things that we as a city and we as a county need done in Annapolis, and it's ridiculous. And the only way to fight ridiculousness and not everyone go down that same rabbit hole is facts and figures. And I would like to ask the city to consider spending a half a day of we have great administrators, doing a simple little case study of what life would be like in Frostburg if all of a sudden we were Frostburg, West Virginia. I did some statistics. The first thing is obviously our teachers. The difference in average salary is $19,000. We are fortunate to be in Maryland in that our teachers make really good pay for this area. And if their pay was aligned with West Virginia, that alone would be a huge economic hit to the city, the businesses, everyone. And I know that some people are going to say, well, let's just ignore this and hope it goes away. But I have to share, I don't think it's going to go away. I don't think it'll ever happen, but it will be a huge distraction. And maybe if we could have facts and figures on the quality of life metrics, that would change. I started doing a little bit of that, and our twin in West Virginia would, I think, be Mountsville, West Virginia, which I've never been to, but it's the same square miles, same population. If we could just compare and then maybe have a 3-page report that shows what we get from the state to supplement our budget and the activities and the success that we have here. My opinion, I probably wouldn't have come to the meeting just to share that, but since I was here, I just really like to nip this in the bud. Thank you.
Considering the number of grants we get from the state, I wonder what kind of grants are available in West Virginia.
I know they got a closed prison up there that's open for trick or treat.
Well, some of the statistics I showed, you know, Maryland healthcare is 5th in the nation. West Virginia healthcare is 50th. And it's across the board like that. But that, those statistics and those realities need to come from a verifiable source. And I think the city of Frostburg would be well served to interject some facts and figures into this ridiculous